The Fly is a tale of a scientist who transforms himself into an insectoid puss-covered vomit cannon because he was insecure over his girlfriend's ex. Alright, hello everyone. Now, today we're going to be talking about The Fly, director David Cronenberg's 1986 remake of the 1958 sci-fi body horror film. It stars Jeff Goldblum as the scientist Seth Brundle, as well as Gina Davis and John Getz in the main supporting cast. Since this video will be just another one of these plot recaps, let's just cut the crap and get to it then. And as always, spoilers ahead if you haven't seen this movie. So the movie opens up at a press event for this company called Bartok Industries, and here we get introduced to Seth Brundle, who's getting interviewed by journalist Veronica Quaife.
I'm working on something that'll change the world and human life as we know it.
Change it a lot or just a bit? You'll have to be more specific.
He doesn't reveal what it actually is, because apparently he can't have the rest of the committee eavesdropping on him. So he tries to invite Veronica to his lab, clearly thinking espresso machines would win any girl over. Unimpressed, she tries to leave, but after some persistence, Seth manages to convince her to go with him. The two then arrive at Seth's lab. After playing the piano for no reason at all, Seth reveals what he has been working on, which at first glance looks like two oversized mechanical nutsacks, with a third one being what he says the prototype. Again, Seth doesn't tell Veronica what it actually is yet. What he does is ask politely for anything of a possession, and so she gives him a stocking, which he promptly puts in one of the pods. He then whispers a command to the control computer and the stocking disappears.
Great. The world's largest microwave oven.
The two then go over to the other pod, and after some smoke clears, the same stocking appears there.
Is that a hologram?
Seth then reveals that these contraptions are actually teleportation pods, and naturally Veronica's intrigued by this, wanting to write a story and get it out. However, Seth for some reason doesn't want that to happen, but because he was talking to a journalist, it unfortunately will, and so Veronica leaves with the evidence.
Wait, come here, what about your stock?
Keep it for good luck.
She takes it to Particle magazine and shows it to her editor and scumbag ex-partner Stathis Borans.
You're a petty schmuck.
Fortunately, Stathis thinks it's all rubbish, making Seth very relieved.
Excellent.
Clearly, Veronica wasn't wrong about that stocking. Seth then asks Veronica out in the best way possible.
Cheeseburger.
And while they're having lunch at some dingy fast food joint, Seth tells her to keep their telepod story a secret in return for full exclusive rights to document the whole thing.
If this gets out now, Veronica, it'll kill me. The Bartok people will kill me, my colleagues will kill me. She's not ready yet.
You see, despite successfully teleporting inanimate objects, they mutilate organic matter, as demonstrated when a baboon was tested through and came out looking like what could only be described as biohazard. Peter would have probably had an aneurysm if they found out. Anyway, we later learn from Seth that the control computer doesn't have a biological understanding of flesh. What do you expect? It's a computer. It doesn't know anything, and so it makes these weird interpretations of what it thinks organic matter is. Seth does come to this conclusion after an experiment involving steak, and is motivated to teach the computer about the physiology of the human body. Where did he get that motivation from? He had sex with Veronica, somehow hurting himself whilst doing it, and the two start a relationship. After all that, Seth successfully teleports a second baboon. They celebrate for a bit, but Veronica clearly hasn't sorted out her past relationship issues. She leaves after finding out Stathis was threatening to publish the teleport story without her permission, because he was jealous of her new relationship with Seth. Meanwhile, a drunken Seth also gets insecure, thinking Veronica is trying to reconcile with Stathis. So both of them are jealous of their partner's partner. But while one of them is being an asshole about it,
thank you for making my most paranoid fantasies come true.
I don't have to report to you, you creep.
the other decides to teleport himself out of spite.
What are we waiting for? Let's do it.
And so Seth does exactly that. However, he clearly didn't pay attention in science class when it came to standard decontamination procedures, because he was oblivious to the fact that a housefly flew inside the telepod with him. He comes out of the other pod seemingly normal,
How you doing?
and also rekindles his relationship with Veronica. So all's good so far, I guess. For now. Seth initially feels amazing. He's stronger, more energetic, and as for sexual potency, let's just say for him, premature ejaculation is non-existent. However, he does become ridiculously overconfident and thinks that the teleportation process has somehow purified his body. His behavior also becomes erratic.
Waiter, Jesus Christ.
He starts talking at 300 miles an hour, puts too much sugar in his coffee, and has a faster reflex response than a caffeinated squirrel on crack. Of course, Veronica's concerned about Seth's change in personality. Also, she finds it weird that hairs were grown from a wound on his back. The wound from when they first had sex or whatever. Later, Seth tries to force Veronica to undergo teleportation, ranting about how it's beneficial for her, but she refuses understandably. Does Seth react sensibly? Of course not.
You're a fucking drag, you know that?
He abandons her, goes to a bar looking like someone who forgot that hygiene was still a thing, and tries to bag some random girl named Tawny. This naturally angers some nearby men who fancied her, so Seth challenges one of them to an arm wrestling match. He politely leaves him with a compound fracture, and then takes Tawny home for himself. The latter sees Seth teleport himself again. The two have sex. Seth tries to coerce her into teleporting, but fortunately gets stopped by Veronica. And here is where we get the iconic tagline.
No. Be afraid. Be very afraid.
Tawny promptly leaves, and Veronica tells Seth that she took the hairs on his back for testing, only to discover they aren't human but insect-derived. She tries to convince him that something went wrong when he teleported. Of course, Seth doesn't take this well and kicks her out of the lab.
I don't need you anymore.
No, wait. Seth, please, wait. Seth.
Don't come back!
He then goes to the bathroom and starts noticing hairs growing on his face. His fingernails begin to fall out as well, and by now realizes Veronica was right and that something is obviously wrong with him. He finds out that a fly was inside with him when he teleported, and the control computer, confused by the presence of two life forms in the telepod, fused him with the fly at a molecular genetic level. You should have paid attention in science class. Moving on, weeks later, Veronica gets a phone call from Seth, and the two reconnect. One small problem though, Seth now looks like a walking dermatological disaster.
Stop.
His skin is covered in lesions, and he's hunched over like an old man with osteoporosis. He's even developed a wonderful new party trick, which involves vomiting digestive enzymes onto his food before slurping it up, like a fly. He also later gains the ability to stick to walls, like a fly. Naturally, Veronica's horrified, but Seth, for some reason, is calm about the whole thing, and is fully embracing his transformation.
No, I'm becoming something that never existed before. I'm becoming Brundlefly.
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no, man.
He even catalogues his progressive mutations like a scientist conducting an experiment, except the subject is himself.
How does Brundlefly eat?
Seth also begins to lose body parts. His ears fall off, his hair falls out, his teeth drop out, but he continues to delude himself into thinking he's evolving into something better. He's not even realizing he's just turning into an ambulatory biological hazard. Veronica, meanwhile, is just emotionally wrecked. She still cares for Seth, but what can she do about it? Nothing. Only Seth can fix his own mess. And how is he planning to do that? By reprogramming the telepods as well as the prototype to be gene splicers, in this bizarre attempt at trying to overpower the fly genes with human DNA. And as if things couldn't get potentially any worse, Veronica's pregnant.
I'm pregnant.
With Seth's potential child. She has a nightmare of going to the hospital with Staphys and giving birth to it. And it's a boy! Never mind, it's a giant maggot. Understandably, she wants to terminate the pregnancy as soon as possible. She does see Seth one more time though, who by now has the physique of an insectoid meth addict. Through some talk about insect politics, we find out he's slowly losing his human reason and compassion. He has left Seth and more fly. Yet he still cares about Veronica and wants her to stay away from him for her own good.
I'm saying I'm an insect who dreamt he was a man and loved it. But now the dream is over and the insect is awake. I'm saying I'll hurt you if you stay.
Veronica then persuades Staphys to take her to the hospital so she can have an abortion. However, Seth overhears this plan and violently disagrees. He thinks this baby is the last piece of him that's still human, and he's gonna do what it takes to keep it alive. So what does he do? He kidnaps Veronica and brings her back to his lab. Naturally, Staphys, being the committed man he is, shows up at the lab with a shotgun. Unfortunately, he's not an action hero, and so Seth vomits on his hand, melting it into a stump. And as if that wasn't enough, he also vomits on his ankle. Seth then reveals his weird-ass grand plan to Veronica. He will use the telepods to fuse himself and her, together with their unborn child, into one entity.
We'll be the ultimate family. more human than I am alone.
And while dragging her into one of the pods, Veronica fights back and accidentally rips off his jaw. Subsequently, this triggers Seth's final transformation, and he turns into some weird insectoid human creature that could only be described as the unholy love child of a cockroach and a decomposing cadaver. Brundlefly traps Veronica into a telepod and then enters the other, initiating the fusion sequence and ensuring that his final act as a sentient being is to turn his girlfriend and unborn child into the world's worst family portrait. However, Stathis, despite incapacitated, manages to shoot the cables connecting Veronica's telepod with the control computer, and she manages to escape. All the while, Brundlefly tries to escape too, but he fails and gets fused with the door of the telepod he was in. Out of the other telepod comes a grotesque amalgamation of flesh, metal and shattered dreams. Veronica picks up the shotgun and tries to kill Brundlefly, but hesitates because after all, he is still Seth Brundle. Yet Brundlefly grabs the barrel of the gun and presses it against its own head, making it very clear that even he is tired of this movie's body horror nonsense. Veronica puts him out of his misery, and the movie ends with her bursting into tears. I absolutely adore this movie, and all for good reason. Director David Cronenberg took a simple premise: man turns into fly, and expanded it with themes of identity, transformation, and the slow but horrifying loss of humanity. I honestly think this is one of Jeff Goldblum's greatest performances, as he transitioned seamlessly from this quirky-ass genius to a victim of scientific hubris. Usually I'm blasé when it comes to horror films, so the practical effects and makeup didn't shock me as much, but seeing Seth lose his own self like this just makes me sad. No one could help him, and he could have fixed it all, but in the end it was all too late. And the thought of that is what makes the movie even more scary. The Fly is essentially a tragedy then. It's a story of a man who wanted to do something great, only to just become a victim of his own ambition, insecurity, and just plain bad luck. There's no happy ending, just a pile of biomechanical flesh and the crushing realization that sometimes science should have its limits. And that's about it for this video. Make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video.